Okay guys, it's UFC 312 this weekend. As always, I will be live streaming on all of my socials. Make sure to check it out. If you guys would like to bet on the fights, poke a bet, link in the description. Please consider becoming a member down here, link in the description as well. Let's get into these fights for the massive card this weekend. Okay, as I mentioned, UFC 312 takes place this weekend. We'll go to the first fight, which is down here. It is at welterweight. Francisco Prado versus Jake Matthews. I'm a big Francisco Prado fan, so if you look at the tail of the tape, we've got Francisco Prado 12-2-0 from Argentina, 5'10", ignore the weights, 69-inch reach and a 38-inch reach in the leg reach. If we look at Matthews, 27-0 from Australia, 5'11", 73-inch reach with a 4-inch reach advantage, 43-inch leg reach. If we go to their last five, starting off with Jake Matthews, he is 2-3 in his last five, coming off a unanimous decision win. If we look at Francisco Prado, he is also 2-3 in his last five, coming off the loss to Zellhuber, unanimous decision loss. It was, however, as you can see here, a fight of the night performance. Even in a loss, in his last victory, it was also a fight of the night performance. If you go down to the betting odds, under sports, you can go to the event view, down to MMA, UFC. 1.42 for Matthews, 2.87 money line on Francisco Prado, which is not a bad bet to have a look at. 1.59 for it to go over 2.5 and 2.26 for it to go under 2.5 rounds. Okay, so Jake Matthews has a lot of advantages in this fight. He's fighting at home. He's coming off a win, whereas Prado's coming off a loss. Jake Matthews is incredibly tough. I mean, he can take big shots. He's a pretty good boxer, pretty good grappler, but I think if you look at the way Prado fights, Prado is a very good striker. I might be a little bit biased because I'm a Prado fan. Ever since I saw this kid in his first fight in the UFC, I thought he's got a bright future, and I think his skill level is too high. I think he's been great even in his losses. It was a very close decision that he lost in the last fight, even getting fight of the night honors. And I think if you're a betting man, you go for that money line with Prado at 2.87. I think I'm going to go for Prado to get it done. He could possibly knock Matthews out, but I think Matthews is tough and it'll be really tough to knock him out. But it is a possibility, but I'm going to go Prado via dominant unanimous decision. In the next fight we've got at light heavyweight, it is Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato, 12-1-1 versus 12-2-0. Australia versus Brazil, 6'2", 6'3", 74-inch reach for Jimmy Crute, 77.5-inch reach for Rodolfo. 43-inch leg reach versus 44, virtually identical. If we go over to Jimmy Crute's last five, it doesn't make for pretty reading. Yeah, 1 win, 3 losses, and 1 draw in his last 5. Fought some pretty big names in Jamal Hill and Anthony Smith, but he's been finished in all of those losses, so it doesn't really make for pretty reading. If we go to Rodolfo Bellato, if you include his Contender Series loss in September 2022, he is 1-4 in his last 5. Come back and win, and then won his UFC debut via ground and pound. If we go to the poker bet odds, we've got Jimmy Crute at 2.3 and Rodolfo Bellato at 1.62. Under 1.5, it's 2.03. That might be a good bet to go. Over 1.5, it's 1.73. Okay, so if you ask me, this fight is pretty clear. You've got two fighters on completely different trajectories. You've got Rodolfo on an upward trajectory, and you've got Crute on a downward trajectory. Even fighting at home, I think it's going to be too much for Crute, and I'm going to go for Rodolfo to win this via first or second round TKO or KO. That bet of under 1.5 could be a good one to go for Rodolfo, first or second round TKO. Up next, we get to what could be a possible slugfest. We've got Justin Tafa versus Talisson Teixeira, 7-4-0 versus 1-0-0. Teixeira is actually 7-0-0. The UFC needs to maybe update that. New Zealand versus Brazil, 6 foot versus 6'7". Poor Tafa. Heavyweights, of course, 74-inch versus 83-inch, 40-inch versus 43-inch. If we look at the last 5 for Tafa, not too bad. He's been on a pretty good run. He is 3-1-1 no contest, coming off a unanimous decision loss to Carl Williams. Okay, looking at Teixeira's last 5, obviously an undefeated fighter. He is 5-0 in his last 5, coming off a Contender Series victory, getting thrown straight into the deep end, proverbially, against Justin Tafa, a seasoned competitor. But it shows you how shallow the heavyweight division is in the UFC. I've spoken about that at length before. Looking at the odds, pretty even on a money line. Teixeira 1.73, Justin Tafa 2.1. That might be a good bet to go for, seeing as these guys are going to probably slug it out, so that could be a good one to look at. If you ask me, this is quite a pick-em fight. I think it's a little bit disrespectful to Tafa to have him as an underdog on most of the betting odds, particularly because he's similar to Mark Hunt, similar to Bam Bam, in that one punch could put most people's lights out. I do, however, think though that the reach for Teixeira is going to be something that he's going to take advantage of. It could come back to haunt him if he is a little bit too timid, but if he gets to fight his fight at range, he should be able to beat Tafa. There is a possibility, as I say, it's a pick and fight of Tafa knocking him out, so you could get decent odds there, but I think I'm going to go for Teixeira by knockout, probably in the 2nd or 3rd round. Okay, then we get to the first of 2 title fights with Zhang Weili versus Tatiana Suarez, 25-3-0 versus 11-0. China versus United States, 5-4-5-5, 63 inches versus 66 reach, 3-inch reach advantage for Suarez, 36-inch leg reach versus 39. Suarez again with the leg reach advantage. If we go to the last 5 fights, Zhang Weili is 1-4 in her last 5. Her only 2 losses have come both to Rose Namajunas. A split decision loss is her last loss. She beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Carla Esparza, Amanda Lemos, Jenon Yan. She's defended her belt twice. This is now her 3rd title defense that she is going for. On a really good run, has looked very, very dominant. For Tatiana Suarez, the undefeated fighter, is obviously 5-0 in her last 5. Also beat quite a number of big names: Alexa Grasso, Carla Esparza, Nina Nunes, Montana De La Rosa, and Jessica Andrade. If you go to the poker bet odds, pretty even. Tatiana Suarez a slight favorite. If you look at the over-unders, a couple of decent odds on under 1.5 or 2.5. I think it's going to be very difficult for it to get there. So very, very even fight on the betting odds. So in this fight, it really is even. You've got a dominant champion on the one hand in Zhang Weili versus one of the most blue chip prospects, an undefeated prospect in Tatiana Suarez. It's really going to come down to, can Tatiana Suarez get Zhang Weili down to the ground, and can she do damage and impose her will on the ground? Zhang Weili will know what's coming. She will have trained extremely hard. She is susceptible to getting taken down, so it's going to play into Tatiana Suarez's hands. I do think that this fight, again, the betting odds show it could go either way. Zhang Weili, being the champion, would like to keep her belt, of course, similar to Merab versus Umar. I could see Tatiana Suarez, if she can impose her game plan, getting it to the ground, and even if she doesn't submit Zhang Weili, dominating her on the ground and keeping her there. But something inside me just tells me that Zhang Weili is going to want to stay champion, knowing what it's like to come so close and lose to Rose Namajunas, then going back and winning the belt thereafter. So I'm going to say Zhang Weili wins this one via decision. But I can see it just as easy going the other way. And then we get to the main event, a rematch of UFC 297 for the middleweight belt. Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. 22-2 for the champion, 29-6 for the challenger. South Africa versus USA. Both have an identical reach of 76 inches. Dricus having a slight reach advantage in the leg reach. 43 versus 41.5, very, very slight reach advantage. If you look at the last 5, I see Dricus' pictures updated. There, of course, is Coach Neil Geyser. You'll know him from this channel. Coach Morne Visser. He is 5-0 in his last 5, of course. Darren Till fight now 5 fights ago. Darren Till, Derek Brunson, Robert Whittaker, Sean Strickland, and of course Israel Adesanya most recently. Sean Strickland, American, is 4-1 in his last 5. Beat the likes of Imavov, Abus, Israel Adesanya, Paulo Costa most recently via split decision, and his only loss coming via split decision in the first fight to Dricus du Plessis. Okay, if we look at the betting odds on the money line, Dricus quite a heavy favorite. This is the first time in his UFC career I recall him being a favorite. Never mind a heavy favorite like this. Sean Strickland 2.65. So all the Strickland fans, you guys might want to take that money line if you're confident. For this fight, other sort of odds to look at. The overs, not so much, but the unders, under 1.5. If there's a blitz, you get 5.1 odds. Under 2.5, 3.6. Under 3.5, 2.8, and under 4.5, 2.4. There's a high likelihood this fight gets finished. So those unders are not a bad shout if you want to have a look at that. Now, as I just said, there's a high likelihood this fight gets a finish, and I don't think it's coming from Sean Strickland. I think the finish is coming from Dricus du Plessis. If you look at the first fight, I don't think much will change for Sean Strickland. They obviously come with a different game plan. I think Sean Strickland wanting to stand like men and box, you know, trying to make a pact with Dricus du Plessis. I think that's bullshit. I think he's going to want to wrestle. I think he's going to want to mix it up, because I think he knows he has to do that. I think he knows he has to be aggressive if he wants to win this fight, even if it's by a decision, because in the last fight, yes, he did a lot of damage to Dricus's face, but he was fighting on the back foot for most of the fight. And from a judging standpoint, if you look at that, if you're not putting the person out on the back foot, you are losing the fight. So I think he's going to have to push forward. I think they're going to have to really go for it, and I think it's going to play right into Dricus' style. I don't think anybody does that style better than Dricus, particularly in the middleweight division. I also think Dricus has improved since the last fight. I think he's more of a complete fighter, and that doesn't mean that Sean Strickland is not complete. I think Dricus is more complete than Sean Strickland, and I think Dricus has made necessary changes that need to be made from the last fight to this fight to have a dominant performance. So as much as I'd love a split decision victory or a doctor stoppage for Dricus just to piss the Sean Strickland fans off, I don't think that's going to happen, and I think Dricus puts him away via TKO inside 4 rounds. So those betting odds on the under would be a good way to go. So those are my predictions. Let me know what your predictions are for UFC 312. Don't forget to join me for the live stream this weekend on all of my socials. If you guys want to bet on the fight, poker bet up there. If you guys want to become a member, please become a member. All of these links are in the description, and I will see you this weekend for UFC 312. Cheers, everybody.